Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Live. I am Wendy Lai. Coming up this afternoon. Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation justifies court prosecution of TV license defaulters. Meanwhile, there's a public outrage on the TV license saga. Private legal practitioner faults charge for clearing finance minister in the Eurobond conflict of interest position. Accra Metropolitan Assembly serves a notice of decongestion in parts of the capital. And in business, the business players shared their expectations for 2018 in the first working day of the year. And on the foreign front, 5 Somali men have been charged in connection with the 14th October truck bombing in Mogadishu that killed at least 500 people. We have entertainment, sports, all coming up shortly. Please stay with us. This is Midday Live, and let's start with our stories now. A Ghanaian US-based law professor, Professor Kaku Asari, has stated that her leadership, Chief Justice Sophia Akufo-Addo, should have rejected the request by the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, GBC, to set up a special court to deal with persons who fail to pay their television license fee. The courts, as approved by the Chief Justice, will be located in all the regions and will sit every Thursday with effect from January 4, 2018 to prosecute persons who fail to pay their TV license. In a post, that's a Facebook post, Professor Kaku Asari said, "We must be careful not to develop a culture where every public institution is asking her ladyship to set up a special court to enforce its claims. Her ladyship should have rejected the Director General's request to set up the special TV license courts and use the occasion to advise the Director and the nation that the debtors' prison are unlawful in the country." As such, in Section 10, Subsection 1 of the NLCD 89 as amended by PNDCL 257, which criminalizes the non-payment of the license fee, is unconstitutional. You're still watching Midday Live, and still on this topic, let's hit the streets and find out people's views on this very topic.
GBC in February resumed the collection of TV license fee after it was suspended for more than 2 decades. It appears the attempts to charge Ghanaians for owning television sets have proved futile. Per arrangement, dealers in TV sets will pay 5 cedis per month, while commercial users will pay 3 cedis per month for owning a television set. However, the fee will double depending on the number of gadgets. And so, with the creation of a special court to prosecute defaulters, bolster efforts in future, what do you think?
The question is this: why must we pay the TV license? And what must we use that money for? That is the question. If you know how we are going to use the money for the TV license, I think people are going to pay. But if you don't know what you are going to use the money for, I don't think that people is going to pay. So raising court for this matter will not be necessary until the matter is being informed and people are aware of it. That's all. People are going to pay the TV license.
And they fine pa. We say buy no quantity mean to a cabby sa. School ye say no fine. You de buy my money now could be fine, but ain't remember set TV license so I bind the bear and a car mum. And no mum the intervene fine. Then I find say or this hard and ever.
The measures. Okay, let's go. I personally feel the measures they are putting in place in collection of the money should be very, very much strict to get people paid. And I thought that is why they set up a court, special court to prosecute people. However, the feasibility and how practical that's going to be is a problem. You touch a number of people there, you know. So I'm looking at the practicality of it and the feasibility of it. If only that can solve the problem. But I don't think, personally, from my point of view, I don't think it will curb the issue of not paying TV licenses.
Yes, it will make people pay because it will serve at so that those who made their mind that they will not pay can also think otherwise.
But is it even necessary to set up a court in the first place?
I think they should they should wait. They should do law enforcement rather, instead of when it doesn't work before they should think about setting up a court for it.
In my opinion, I don't think it will help. Right. My reason is simple because nowadays the whole air is full of other channels. You know, this TV license I think is meant for GTV. Yeah. And you know, GTV to me personally is not too attractive. And even the number of Ghanaians that patronize that station, I don't know. So if the government wants to, you know, take some taxes for some other purposes, they should look for a different way. But to prosecute people because of TV licenses, I don't think, in my own opinion, I don't think it's okay.
Some would say the money is meager, it's just small, 3 cedis and 5 cedis. Yeah. Can't you pay that money?
Oh, it can be paid. It can be paid. But you see, these days we pay taxes and people misuse them. Even those who collect taxes, what is the guarantee that they will present good receipt to present it to government? Yeah. So I don't trust pay some of this money. Some of them will end up being in some pockets, you know.
So we're trying to reach the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. As and when we get him, we'll speak to him on this matter. You're still watching Midday Live. Let's move on to some other stories. And President Akufo-Addo has assented to 5 bills, including the Special Prosecutor Bill. At a brief signing ceremony at the Flagstaff House, the President was confident the laws will promote effective development, enhance and deepen Ghana's democracy.
The 5 bills also include Northern Development Authority Bill, the Middle Belt Development Authority Bill, Coastal Development Authority Bill, and the Zongo Development Fund Bill. President Akufo-Addo spoke about the importance of signing the bills to the development of the country's democracy and infrastructural enhancements. President Akufo-Addo first spoke about the office of the Special Prosecutor Bill.
So it's gone through a lot of controversy. But my hope and expectation is that the establishment of this office is going to be an important step in our collective determination to root out corruption in the public life of our country. All of us know that it has been a major bane in the development of Ghana. And hopefully this office, that is its intention, will make that contribution and make sure that public officials, past and present, are held to account for their actions, and that corrupt acts will no longer go without investigation and, if necessary, sanction.
He again spoke about the other development bills.
In the course of the campaign, we indicated that we wanted to try a new approach to the development of our country, a new approach that went towards a decentralization of the development paradigm, and to have a way of funding directly the development needs of the constituencies. Our belief is that the centralized approach to development that we have witnessed virtually the entire period of our independent life has not been successful in delivering development at the grassroots of our society. And therefore, we made this commitment that we would spend every year on each constituency the equivalent of $1 million. And that these developmental authorities that are now going to be put in place will be the vehicle for the management of these funds and the expenditure of the equivalent of $1 million per constituency commitment.
And the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, on December 29, 2017, cleared the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, of allegations of conflict of interest in the issuance of some bonds. The Commission, however, after its investigations of allegations made against the Minister by a citizen, Mr. Yao Bojajenfi, gave wide-ranging directives in relation to the bond issuance processes to ensure transparency and clarity. After 5 months of investigations, which included interviews with the parties involved, industry players, transaction advisors, security brokers, and the Registrar General, and a review of the guidelines, regulations, laws, and other documents, SHRAJ concluded that on the basis of the evidence available to the Commission, it has come to the conclusion and therefore holds that the allegations by the complainant that the respondent has contravened Article 284 of the 1992 Constitution by putting himself in a conflict of interest situation in relation to the issuance of the 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, and 15-year bonds have not been substantiated. SHRAJ also directed that the minister, as a matter of urgency, pass regulations, rules, or guidelines to regulate the format of the criteria for the auctions and the procedures for participation, bidding, and allocation in auctions in relation to the issuance of securities in the domestic market. Joining me this afternoon in the studio to talk a lot more about this issue is Justice Remsai. He is a lecturer at the Gimpa Law School. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy
Thanks
New Year
for
to
your time. Now, where exactly did SHRAJ err here?
Well, let me just take us back to understand the scope of the discussion. So, there are basically 3 institutions involved here. We have the Data Bank Enterprise Group, and I'll put all of them together at one side. Then we have the Republic of Ghana on the other side. Then we have a third institution, which is the institution that bought the bonds, that's Templeton Investment. Now, the allegation is conflict of interest. Conflict of interest simply means that someone has divided allegiance to 2 things. So, in this case, the allegation is against the finance minister. What it means is that the finance minister has interest somehow in protecting the people of Ghana, and also another interest in his private relationships. Now, in these private relationships, it is traced through the enterprise group, which is the data bank group that we know the minister used to, or probably still, has interest in, linking it to the Templeton guys who bought the stock, the bond. Now the question is, if we are able to find a link between the finance minister, the enterprise group, and Templeton, then there is a case of conflict of interest, because we know conflict of interest, as I mentioned, simply means that the person has divided loyalty. Now the commission found that the minister has an interest in the data bank group, and then there is someone in the data bank group who also has an interest or is linked with Templeton Investment. That means that then the minister has an interest linked through data bank, through that person, to Templeton, and also is supposed to protect the people of Ghana on one side. Now, upon finding this, what should have been done was that the commission should have declared that there was conflict of interest, unless indeed the minister disclosed this conflict to Parliament ahead of time and Parliament would cleared him. But the commission did not find that the minister made any form of disclosure.
But if I can cut you there, the previous government did deal with Templeton, and here SHRAJ has concluded with its investigations, done all the ins and outs in relations to this very matter. Shouldn't this end, even in the light where you mentioned conflict of interest, and knowing that the previous government did deal with the same institution?
The new element here is the Minister of Finance. The allegation is against the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance, this particular Minister of Finance, was not in the previous administration. So the issue of conflict of interest couldn't have arisen because there was no one who found himself between the government and Templeton. So once the Minister of Finance enters the equation, it will not matter what has happened in the previous years, and the commission made it clear on that the previous arrangement didn't matter because the minister is a new introduction into this equation. Now the minister did not disclose. In fact, the commission also found out that the minister did not declare some of his assets. Whether that is true or not, I am not the commission, but the commission found out, as a matter of fact, that the minister failed to disclose some of his assets, which were involved in this transaction. That is his interest in some of the organizations that were involved in this transaction. Now the question is, on what basis did the commission, after finding all these links, come to the conclusion that there was no conflict of interest? And that is where our issue is. The issue is that you cannot find all this and still come to say that there was no conflict of interest. Now, the commission relied on a case which they interpreted to mean that you even if you find yourself in the position of conflict of interest, you have not breached the Constitution unless you make personal benefit from the transaction, which is completely wrong, not just in fact, but also at law. Because we know that conflict of interest, we have potential conflict of interest and we have actual conflict of interest. Either of them is conflict of interest.
But now Straj has ended with their findings, come up with a conclusion. What next? What are the available avenues?
Well, there are two, for both the minister and the complainant. They all have another bite because the report of the commission could be reviewed by the courts. So in this case, if the minister has a problem with the findings, the factual findings of the commission, the minister has an option to actually challenge those findings in the courts. And also, if the complainant has a challenge, or as we believe he has, if he has an issue with a report, which we believe he has, he may also seek a review at the courts. So at the end of the day, I believe that the issue shouldn't end up here. We cannot end or drop this issue at this stage. We need to see its logical conclusion, and all that.
Thank you so much for your time. Justice Sremsai, he is a law lecturer at the Gimpa Law School. We're grateful for your time.
Thank you very much.
To some other stories, and the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana has issued Let's take that story again. And SETAG has issued an ultimatum to the government to start working on their market premium.
Colleges will bear with me that there's an easy calm because we are supposed to have governing councils in place, and ever since the new took over 1 year.
You're still watching Media Live. We'll bring you that story shortly.
Hello, I'm Michael Otieje, and I'm poised to give you sports news at its very best. If it happens in the world of sports, this is your platform, Sports Unlimited. All the news, the exclusive interviews, the analysis, the scores, the statistics, and what it means for your favorite team, your favorite player, and your favorite sport. Sports Unlimited every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Sports Unlimited, sports news at its very best.
To every story, there's a deeper meaning, a host of angles, which, when reported with the highest ethics of journalism, bring out the perspectives that matters most to you. That's what News 360 is all about. I seek to climb higher, dig deeper, and go further to bring you 360 degrees of the news and what happens thereafter. I'm Natalie Fort. Join me on News 360 every weekday at 7 p.m.
In 2013, we shaped the course of national policy with compelling stories on education and health. In 2016, we provided the platform for political parties and the socially excluded to engage on issues of national concern. TV3 Mission is back with a bang. We navigate the turbulent terrain of deprived and hard-to-reach communities.
To one message for person access to teaching,
empowering women to they provide about.
We focus our sharp lenses on the health and educational needs of the socially excluded to influence policy interventions that promote inclusiveness.
And it tells you how serious
we will get you resolved. Mission Ghana, live on News 360. Mission is supported by Star Ghana with funding from Danida, DFID and the European Union.
It's back. And more. Captivating, cosmopolitan, classy, creative, clever, confident, clean, catchy, controlling, cunning. It's time to be captured by women. Catch the new exciting season of Captured by Women coming soon on TV3.
Hello, I'm Michael Otieje, and I'm poised to give you sports news at its very best. If it happens in the world of sports, this is your platform, Sports Unlimited. All the news, the exclusive interviews, the analysis, the scores, the statistics, and what it means for your favorite team, your favorite player, and your favorite sport. Sports Unlimited every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Sports Unlimited, sports news at its very best.
Thanks for staying. In 2017, the Parliament of Ghana came under intense scrutiny following some allegations of bribery against members. In an investigation conducted, failed to establish those allegations. Subsequently, the House showed clear partisan divide in most issues under the legislation, which works out by the minority, clear divide over the Special Prosecutors Bill, then accusations against members themselves of corruption and thievery. But how well did Parliament fare in 2017? And joining me this afternoon, I do have Dr. Rashid Draman. He's Executive Director for ASEPA. Good afternoon, and thanks for your time. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Now, with your assessment, and we know that over the years you've done some work in relation to Parliament, how do you think Parliament fared in 2017? Was it satisfactory?
Well, I mean, in 2017, we haven't done any scientific study, but we've been involved in the work of Parliament. Even this morning, I'm just coming from Parliament right now. We work very closely with Parliament and all the structures. If we have to do maybe a very quick assessment, we would have to look at the three core functions that the Constitution mandates our members of Parliament to perform. The first one is lawmaking, the second one is oversight, and the third one is representing you and I. If you look at lawmaking, I don't know whether you've been following the discussions. 2 days ago, the First Deputy Speaker was in Kumasi, and he said he praised this first session of the 7th Parliament for having passed more bills than any other session of Parliament. If you look at it, overall they passed about 26 bills. And I just saw on your news this the President assenting to a number of them. I mean, very, very commendable. Special prosecutor, most of the things that they said they were going to do when they come to power. But the key question there, in terms of assessing whether the bills are good bills or good laws eventually or not, is how much you and I have contributed, have made inputs into those bills. Because, I mean, we don't measure the lawmaking role of Parliament simply by the number of bills that have been passed into law, but also the quality and how much you and I have had the opportunity to contribute. So I think on that score, on the numbers, I think we will give them a big mark in terms of having done quite well and quite creditably. And those laws are no mean laws. I think, I mean, they are laws that fundamentally will change a lot of things in our country. Corruption, I mean, decentralized development and so on. When you come to oversight, I think that is where our parliament has fallen short because, you know, we still have this challenge that we've been talking about over the years, the fusion between the executive and the legislature, and the situation where we have a number of our members of parliament wearing two hats. And most of the time, they are more, if you like, because they are part of cabinet, most of them. They sit in cabinet and come up with all these policies and so on. And then they come and sit in the house the next moment, and then they are supposed to be providing oversight. I mean, it's humanly challenging.
But can we get to a point where we can have a clear, straight path and say that we're going this way and nothing will stop us from achieving this?
Well, that was part of the constitutional review process. I think Ghanaians overwhelmingly said, you know, we want a clear separation. We want a clear divorce from, I mean, between parliament and the executive. As you can see, in the last days of the third meeting, you realize Mr. Speaker lamented several times about the level of absenteeism. And you saw the report from Odikru about the number of MPs who have been absent and so on. And if you look at the list, majority of them are ministers of state. So that arrangement is not good for oversight. It's not even good for, if you like, the regular work of Parliament. It gives Parliament a very bad image. So that is on oversight. And then when you come to representation, look, I don't know if I ask you the question, how do you access your member of parliament, whether you have an answer or not?
Maybe from my point of view, because I'm a media person, that
exactly.
could be easier. But for
a majority of citizens, for all of us, you go to my constituency, I don't have a place where I should be able to go and meet my member of parliament if I have any issue that, that I want the member of parliament to champion. Over the years, we've talked about the fact that we need constituency offices, we need structures in the constituency so that representation can be given true meaning. Up to this point, we don't have that. So I think on that score, I would say Parliament continues to fail the nation significantly, if you like.
All right. Well,
I mean, more than the other aspects of the work of Parliament. But overall, I think I would say they've discharged their lawmaking duties creditably. Oversight continues to remain a challenge. Representation, very bad.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Rashid Rahman. He's Executive Director for the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Now let's go back to our earlier story where I mentioned that the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAC, have raised issues and given an ultimatum to government to start working on their market premium or face their wrath.
In the colleges will bear with me that there's an easy calm because we are supposed to have governing councils in place, and ever since the new government took over 1 year down the lane, the government has not been able to constitute the governing councils. And when you look at this act, the Colleges of Education Act 847, subsections 5, 6, and 7, it's clear, explicit, the formation and functions of the governing councils. So we realize that in the absence of the councils, a lot of things are not happening the way they are supposed to happen. For instance, major decisions that have to be taken by the colleges cannot be taken because the principals have got their own limitations. In some cases, too, some ad hoc, some decisions that are arbitrary and discretionary are also taken, which we believe is not the best. And the worst of it all is the teacher in the college who is, worse off. Why are we saying that? Per our structures, promotion is not gained based on the number of years you've served like we used to have in the GES. It is publish or perish. We have people who have published articles, and governing councils are supposed to set up promotions and appointment and promotions committee, and then the governing council will okay it before they will gain their promotion. 1 year now, such people are in a limbo, not knowing when their promotions will go through. So in all of this, we think it's not good enough for the colleges. That's why we're saying that CETAC, we're giving the government up to 31st of January to implement or to ensure that the governing councils are constituted and inaugurated. Other than that, the association will have no option than to advise ourselves. And two, another major concern is the issue of the market premium we've been talking about. Remember when we came here the last time, we raised it. It is clear that all teachers in tertiary dispensation in Ghana here, talk of the tertiary, the mainstream universities, talk of the technical universities, the teachers over there are entitled, they enjoy market premium. The universities, we know they take 102, 103% of the pre-single spine basic salary as their market premium. The polytechnics are also taking between 80 and 90% of their single spine basic salary, in addition to the basic salary as their market premium. You cannot tell us that we who have also, by this act, the colleges, also as tertiary institutions, you cannot tell us because of some government white paper we are not entitled to. We should be treated as new entrants in the tertiary bracket, just like all other lecturers who have been engaged since 2012, and they go there to automatically enjoy these things. So on that score too, we have given the government up to 31st of April to ensure that the engaged leadership agree on whatever percentage that is deserving of the members of CETAC and effect payment by 30th of April. Yeah, as I said, 30th of April. Other than that, we have no option than to advise ourselves. The college teacher can no longer tolerate this kind of discrimination.
Away from that story, the Concerned Ghanaian Christian says government's vote on the United Nations General Assembly rejecting Jerusalem as the legitimate capital of Israel is unacceptable and is out of place. It is therefore calling on government to take appropriate measures to reverse the position it has taken to avert calamity.
The United Nations General Assembly in 2017 adopted by a decisive vote of 128 to 9 with 35 abstentions a motion rejecting the U.S. decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Ghana was among 129 countries of the UN General Assembly who decisively backed a resolution effectively calling on the U.S. to withdraw its recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. At a press conference in Accra, the concerned Ghanaian Christians said government has totally failed to represent Ghanaians on the decision.
That the government's vote is totally unacceptable to the Ghanaian Christian community who form the majority of the population of Ghana. We are calling on the government of Ghana. On this issue of Jerusalem, we are saying they have not spoken for the majority of Ghanaians. And if they doubt what we are saying, they can try it with a referendum. We shall be vindicated.
The group is therefore calling on government to take appropriate measures to reverse the position it has taken to avert calamity.
Côte d'Ivoire moved her capital from Abidjan to Yamoussoukro. Nobody cried foul. Ghana moved her capital from Cape Coast to Accra. Nobody cried foul. Why then can't Israel return to Jerusalem after dispersion into the nations? We would like to also state that history proves that anyone, person or nation that takes a stand against Israel courts divine wrath and disaster.
You're still watching Media Live. Do stay. Thanks for staying. Let's do business now. And the Greater Accra Metropolitan Assembly is to clamp down on squatters and hawkers who have encroached footbridges and pavements on ceremonial streets beginning January 8th. The AMA, in a strongly worded statement, also cautioned persons who have illegally occupied government-reserved lands, including squatters in slum along the railway lines within the Kwame Nkrumah Interchange Enclave. You would recall TV3's investigative piece on illegal activities, including high rates of teenage prostitution at the slum, caught the attention of the AMA after TV3 News presented a copy to the AMA chief executive. The AMA's latest action is in line with plans of the mayor to decongest the city and in direct response to TV3's report. Let's go on the phone line now and speak to the AMA Chief Executive, Mohammed Ni Ajesoa. Good afternoon, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, my dear, and good afternoon to your cherished viewers.
Now, what form is this decongestion exercise going to take? And how long will this be?
Well, thank you very much once again. This is a combined force of the AMA Metro Guards, the police, and the military that will put together our resources to be able to decongest the city. So if you ask me, it's a combined effort of all the security agencies, i.e. the police, the military, and the AMA. But the AMA is leading the task.
Now, how sustainable will this be, knowing that even though you've mentioned that we're having the military and the police all getting involved, how sustainable will this be?
Well, we've worked on this project a couple of times, and I must agree that in some instances we relax the enforcement, and that brings about the traders onto the pedestrian walkway and the streets. But this time around, with what with the police on this project that we're going to embark on, and by the new road traffic regulations, LI 2180, that enjoins the police to embark on this exercise on their own. So the police themselves are willing to take up this exercise, and the AMA is leading by working with them to support in terms of logistics and all resources to ensure that this exercise goes on successfully. And to sustain it, the police intends to deploy their men onto the streets for them to be there for as long as they can, so that they will ward off people that flout the law.
Now, as long as you can, are there timelines? If you mention as long as you can, are there specific timelines?
There are no specific timelines. The government works in perpetuity, and we are supposed to be there to make sure that people comply with these regulations. Indeed, if you permit me, the markets are empty. People have moved out from the markets to come and sell on the pedestrian walkway and on the streets. I have gone to the markets myself. I had engaged with the leaders. We've engaged with the hawkers as well, and we asked them to go back into the markets. So they are fully aware of it. And for the past 1.5 months, our public information van had been going around the city, including La Paz, some areas in Kolebu and Kwashiman areas, just to ensure that people go back into the market and sell in the market, and don't use the pedestrian walkway and the street as an extension of their market activity.
All right.
This is not quite helpful. And what is worrying is that after they block the road to sell, they leave the filth on the streets. We have to come and clean it. We'll clean it, and in no time, the filth comes back again. This is unacceptable. And because they have also blocked the pedestrian walkway, pedestrians are forced to walk on the streets of Accra, and we compete with vehicles, and car knocks human beings all the time. If you go to La Paz intersection records the highest road crashes in the whole of Accra, simply because of the congestion over there, in addition to some other factors as well.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
Human life is not important to us in this particular endeavor.
Thank you so much for your time. I have been speaking to Me Ajay Soa. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the AMA. That's all for business this afternoon. That'll be all for this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Midday Live. I am Wendy Lai. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Do have a lovely afternoon.